Good morning. This is the Virtual Rifle Systems Mark III official unboxing / how-to video. First thing you got to do, remove the box.
Iron Gunnery Sergeant Hartman, your senior drill instructor.
First off, assembly. The main components of the rifle. Right here in the center is what everybody's going to get in their box, minimally. The main rifle, tools, accessories are here, so you may or may not have purchased some accessories, and then I've got controller connectors on the side. So let's go over the rifle assembly. First component you have is the buffer with buttstock. It's adjustable, obviously. We're going to slide that onto the upper through here. Now, what we're providing are two options for assembly here. If you're someone that wants to set up your rifle, you have a particular game that you always play and you run a particular setup and you just want to set up your rifle and leave it locked in place, then there's a button head cap screw. So that you can just tighten down, lock it in place, you don't have to touch it. However, if you're playing something like a standout, last player, a battle royale type game, or you're constantly changing your weapons platform, and so you need the adjustability to get the optics just right, we're providing this T-nut. So that'll allow you on the fly, you can keep your headset on, you don't have to actually look at it, reach up there, unscrew it, adjust the rifle to where you want it, and then lock it back in place. So it's two options, we'll leave it to you. Finally, you're going to screw on the handguard, and that obviously just screws in place. What I don't have on this upper here is there will be an O-ring right here. That'll help tighten this up when you get close so that you can properly key the handguard to the rifle. So what you don't want is it to rotate while you're playing. So that low O-ring will lock it into place once you have it locked down. Not pictured here, but there'll be an O-ring on there. That's pretty much it for assembly of the rifle itself. Pretty darn easy. There's your adjustable offhand. There's the magnets for the main hand. That's it. That's how you put a Virtual Rifle Systems Mark III together. Next, let's talk about the barrels. So there's a couple different options for barrels. We're offering premium barrels and standard barrel. The standard barrel is an ABS, threaded ABS, tube or rod. The premium is either machined tube or rod or HP printed. So MJF technology, which is badass. We're still landing on pricing, and it might be a combination going forward. Right now, all the premiums are being HP printed. And what you have when you deal with plastic tube rod, you might have some bowing. I've seen it to varying degrees, nothing real bad. But what I've created, so if you order a barrel, you're going to get one of these. And these are what I'm calling a handguard cap. What it does is it keeps the rifle barrel centered in the handguard so that the muzzle device is oriented correctly. The larger one is for the standard, and that probably would come installed on the handguard. I'll probably just put that in place. The smaller one is for the premium. You will have to install that, and I'll show you the difference between the two. these little feet lock it in place in the M-lock style opening here. And this just rests on the end. So for a standard barrel, this is the end that screws to the upper. You can see there's a spot for the barrel to ride through there. On the opposite end, this is installed. The two bottom pieces are closer together when you look at it. Those two pieces go on the bottom here. So you just put this in here, these little feet slide in place, and it locks in place. So there it is installed. And the barrel just rides in like that. And it keeps the barrel centered. Again, this is optional. It's very easy to take out. You don't have to use it. It's your preference. Another thing to note, when you get these barrels, they're shipping with a safety orange thread protector. So you can take that off. If you bought a barrel, chances are you've bought a muzzle as well. It's up to you what you want to do with this thread protector. Say you're transporting the rifle to play somewhere other than your home base, then maybe it's a good idea to put the thread protector on there. I leave that to you. But the barrels will, when you get a barrel, it will have a thread protector on there. So, like I said, you just insert this into the handcard, and then it's threaded on that end to go into the upper. Now let's install a premium barrel. It's a little bit different. So we slide the premium barrel in, and you can start threading it into the upper. And you get it down there as far as you can. Problem is the barrel's not that long, so getting a good grip here might be an issue. And you can see that barrel's not sitting center currently. Once you get it close, and you might be able to do this by hand, what's got to happen is that cap has got to ride on that surface. So the idea is that surface prevents the cap from sliding down into the handguard, and these feet hold it from falling out. They lock in here. So you got to get that down far enough. Once you get it down far enough, before you put the muzzle on, or if you've used the muzzle to help get torque and twist that barrel in, you got to take it back off. So don't over tighten. Put this on the end and get it started. And I have it down far enough so it locked into place. So it holds the barrel in the center. And let's throw a Talon on here to finish it out. So obviously the muzzle just tighten that on. So it looks appropriate. Key it probably one more, and you'll see the barrel might start to turn there. I would be careful. Don't over tighten, because if you need to take the whole thing apart, it might be an issue. But that looks pretty good. So that is barrels and muzzles. Optics are pretty straightforward. I will note that for previous orders and folks that are upgrading, you're still on the optic with a magnetic base. So this was the previous version. So basically it's a base that screws onto the upper, and it's got magnets, and then the optic. The idea was to allow folks to trade optics out easily. We're going away from that. just because magnets are expensive, especially right now. So, but if you upgraded your rifle and you ordered one of these, this is what you're getting. For new orders or pre-orders, it's the new optics, and those are basically, they just slide on and bolt in place. So here's the red dot, and these are now marked, and these are HP. So this is an FDM print, this is an HP print, multi-jet fusion. The same thing with the muzzle devices. So upgrades, FDM printing, new rifles or pre-orders, MJF printing. And then going forward, all the accessories will be MJF. Barrels, there might be some machined rod or tube, but I am not going to be FDM printing any more of these components. The only thing that will be FDM printed for now will be controller connectors. So optics, pretty straightforward. I think I've got, so there's a little press fit nut that goes on one side. Slide this along your rail. Make sure to position it in a place where your headset's not going to hit. Right about there, looks good. There'll be 2 bolts. You just run those through. Run those through, tighten them down. Pretty straightforward. All the optics are the same. So the red dot and the HoloLens. See if I can get the logo on there. The marking's pretty small for that one. Red dot, get it? And aimbot, get it? It's me being clever. So finally, we'll go over the controllers. Before we get started on the controllers, I'm going to do a quick magnet PSA. These magnets are very strong. And just thank God you don't have to work with a big stack of them or several stacks of them, because you're constantly setting them down and it's grabbing your tools, and it can be a pain. These things are, like I said, really strong, so you've got a pile and you set them down, they just attract each other very well. So they're very strong, and they will break too if you do that. So, and then they become very sharp. So just note that these magnets, they're rare earth neodymium, I think is how you say it. They're very strong. So they shouldn't come out, but if they do, just don't let the kids or the dog get a hold of them, and avoid eating them yourself. Yeah, it could cause problems. It might be worth noting. So the point of that is, if this unit, if you accidentally go too far, and you'll feel it, like I just had one drop out there, and you see those magnets come out. So getting the magnets in here can kind of be a pain to get them to sit down, and then plus getting oriented. It's just, you can see that it's really hard to keep them sitting there. Any kind of movement, they'll come back together. So in order to get these back in here, the best way to do it is to take your controller connector, lock it in place, then set the magnets back in there, and they go home. Then you can slide that back on there, and they're locked in place. So just keep in mind, if you've got to put magnets back in, use your controller connector to hold them. It's going to orient them in the correct position, plus it'll hold them in place while you put this back on. That shouldn't come off. You should feel it when you get there. It's just in case something does happen. Plus, you can, when you're adjusting that, you kind of have your hand here, so you can feel where you're at with the headset on. Same thing with the controllers. They shouldn't come out. They're seated in there. I think there's a couple units. The Vive I glue in place. It's just a matter of going back into the model and tightening that up. They shouldn't come out, but if they do, same principle. Put it here, and then the magnet should pop in place. You might have to press it home. But that's what you do with the magnets if something were to come loose. Shouldn't happen, but if it does, you know what to do. And like I said, it's worth mentioning again, these magnets are strong as hell. Assembling the controller connectors. First up, let's look at the Vive. You got a Vive 1. There's a bottom and a top. That's the main hand. This is the off hand. So basically, they're just two parts. Pretty straightforward. They just slide. The top piece slides in there, obviously. The bottom piece slides in here. Let's put the main hand on. Talk about that. So again, the bottom, you'll see that O-ring on there. That O-ring is to prevent slippage so that the connector or the controller doesn't want to turn when it's attached to the rifle. You get into it hot and heavy, you can have an issue with the controller turning, so we added that O-ring to kind of prevent that. So you got to get this nut seated in here correctly. There we go. And you can really, most often, do this by hand. So once you get that screw started, you might be able to tighten this by hand if you get a good grab on that nut. So I think it's starting to go. Line that up towards the front. Take your L key. And tighten it home. Some folks are scared to over tighten this. I say don't let fear and common sense get in your way. I've never had an issue. I tighten the hell out of it. Tighten that up as such. Gone over this before in other videos. That's only pretty good. Doesn't feel like it's going to spin. The purpose of this paddle here, this protrusion, looks a little odd. It's really kind of mimicking a trigger guard frame of the lower. It's for finger rest. Some folks probably don't know what that is. There are some folks out there, me included, that I'm uncomfortable just keeping my finger here all the time. Good gun safety, which there's some overlap. Finger off the trigger till you're ready to engage. Like I said, it's uncomfortable for me to run around like that. And I don't want anybody to build any bad habits when they go to the range and using live fire. So, finger off the trigger. That's what that's for. The only control I don't have sorted out yet on how I want to integrate that would be the Quest. But everything else that kind of accounts for the bulk of the index controller. That's why you have this large area here. The idea is finger rest. Same thing on the Rift. It's a little bit smaller, but finger rest. That's what that's for. Like I said, the Quest, I do not have one built yet. And here is the Oculus Quest. So, for the non-dominant hand or offhand, if you keep this, you can loosen this up, and the idea is that this can be positioned at near 12 o'clock or 3 o'clock. So it depends on how you like to hold, whether you like to hold it here or you like to hold it here. I prefer here, something like this when I'm holding the rifle. So I rotate that a little bit more this way. It's all dependent on what you're comfortable with. And it's on a hinge, very straightforward. I'll use this controller to put on. I have a dominant hand or main hand. And like I said, it's on a hinge. Both of them are on a hinge. One bolt. Line this up with the logo on the top of your controller. Rotate the bottom. Applying moderate pressure. Grab a screw. There's an insert. There's no hex nut in there. It's a insert in the bottom, so you don't have to mess with that. You just push this one bolt in place, apply some pressure on the bottom, and it'll seat, and screw it down. That's it. So same principle for the offhand. But that's the assembly for the Quest. So for the valve index, the best way to do the valve index and the Rift, they're both similar, the way they mount to the controllers. The first thing you want to do is identify which part is which, right from left. So as you look at the part, looking down at the part, this arm falls to the hand which it will be used. So this is on the left side of where the magnets reside. It's for the left hand. So that's probably the best thing to lay this out, to make sure you're putting them together correctly, is identify right from left. And I probably could at some point add an R and an L. Maybe that would help. But identify which part you have. So this falls to the left side of the magnets. This arm falls to the left side of these magnets. It's for the left hand controller. And then once you identify that, the bottom pieces, they only go on one way. So you see there, doesn't matter how you orient it. If you have the left, it will seat in there and you'll see it sandwiched together. So identify your parts first, then attach them. It'll save you some time. Once you have the proper side identified, pick up the corresponding controller, and it kind of, this portion here rests on this support arm. So you just kind of hold it in place. It's a little bit tricky. Hold it in place, grab the bottom, and once you have the two together, you'll feel it kind of reach a comfortable position. And then you can start attaching it. You're gonna need, with that bolt in there, what I do, you only have to get one started. Kind of hold that nut in place so it doesn't fall out till you can grab it with this. And once you get one of these on, it becomes a lot easier. I have the microphone right in my face. It's the only place I can put it. So this is a little difficult. All right, once you have one in place, it's going to be a little bit loose. There are 3 bolts. I leave that to you, how many you want to use. I just use 2. But I'm constantly taking stuff on and putting stuff on. Taking stuff off and putting stuff on. Experimenting with different things. So that's why I only run the 2. But it should hold with 2. It's up to you. You can run all 3 or just the 2. I trimmed this down. This you can see the difference between the Oculus and the Oculus Rift can be trimmed down some, but you see the width is different. The rift could still be trimmed down. I trimmed this down quite a bit. It does allow this to move a little bit, so you want to try to get this lined up with the controller, and then you can tighten it down. Once it's tight, it's going to be locked in place. It's good to go. So that's the index. So obviously this is the left hand, so the right would just be the mirror of that. Same thing. Oculus Rift. So the Rift is similar to the index. There's a top and a bottom. It's a little bulkier. But the trick to this one is to start with the bottom piece. Again, identify which side you have. In this case, this bar, or in this case, the bar or the attachment pieces are on the left of where the magnet, or excuse me, the right of where the magnets are. So this is a right hand. Once you have identified the part, the difference here, start with the bottom piece, and it kind of goes in here, and you rotate it up until it seats in place. So there, you'll know you have it in correctly when it won't move. So it kind of locks itself in place there. So attach the bottom first. Again, rotate it up and in. You should feel it kind of seat itself. And then it's just a matter of taking the top piece, similar to the Rift, put your nuts in, hold the nut in with the finger, drive your nut in there, drive your bolt in there, your hex head in there. I'm not going to screw it down, but that's pretty much the Oculus Rift. So the final point before we close the video out is the push button swivel and the sling. We offer both for purchase on the website. At minimum, I suggest, highly recommend getting this push button swivel, because it's going to at least give you some way to attach the rifle to some sort of weapon retention system. Say you already have a sling, you're done with those shoestrings, you can tie your shoestrings on here. But weapon retention is it's integral to the whole system. You're playing a game and you need to access something else in your kit, sidearm, the tablet, a grenade. You can drop the main weapon on your sling and then use your hands / controllers to manipulate whatever else in your environment. So it's just key to the experience. I know some folks don't order, but I highly recommend at least getting the push button swivel, if not the sling. That's the new Virtual Rifle Systems Mark III. Pretty happy with the way this thing turned out. I think you're gonna love it. The thing looks awesome, feels awesome, and works fantastically. Have a happy day. Stay healthy. Stay safe. Good evening, Virtual Rifle Systems. I'm going to do a quick video, well, maybe not so quick, a video talking about the assembly of the Virtual Rifle Systems Mark III. That was stupid. Good evening. Plus, it allows you to rest in between, so you're not constantly cut. That odd-looking flap there is a finger rest. So the idea is that let's just start over for the... Good evening, Virtual Rifle Systems. It's not a status update. Ah, fuck me.